JJ Rabbit and the Adventure. "I'm bored," said JJ one day. "I feel like an adventure." "An adventure?" asked Mole. "What's that?" "It's when you go somewhere new and something exciting happens," said JJ. "Owl told me." "I think I like an adventure too," said Mole. "Let's go together," said JJ, and scampered off into the wood. "Wait for me," called Mole. They bumped into Squirrel. "Where are you going to in such a hurry?" he asked. "We're looking for an adventure," said Mole. "Looking for a what?" asked Squirrel. "An adventure," said JJ. "It's when you go somewhere new and something exciting happens." "Can I come too?" said Squirrel. "Only if you don't run too fast," said Mole. The animals followed a path which twisted and turned through the wood. "Are we there yet?" panted Mole. "Not yet," said JJ. "How will we know when we are?" said Mole. "When we are somewhere new," said Squirrel. "When something exciting happens," said JJ. The animals walked until they reached the end of the wood, but they didn't find an adventure. Then they walked past a field of corn and through a field of turnips, but nothing exciting happened. They walked for miles and miles. They walked past a field of cows and over a little bridge. "I'm tired of looking for an adventure now," said Squirrel. "I didn't think adventures were such a long way," said Mole. "Can we stop for a rest now, JJ?" asked Squirrel. "JJ?" Squirrel looked back along the path. JJ had disappeared. Mole and Squirrel looked behind trees and under bushes, but there was no JJ. Suddenly, Squirrel stood still. "Listen," he said. "What's that?" "What's what?" said Mole. "Shh!" whispered Squirrel. A small voice was calling, "Help! Help me!" Mole and Squirrel followed the voice back along the path to the bridge. "Help!" it called again. The voice was getting louder. "It's JJ!" cried Squirrel. Mole and Squirrel looked down over the bridge. There was poor JJ, stuck fast in the mud. "Help!" he squealed. "I can't move." "It's all right," cried Mole. "We'll save you." Squirrel found a long, strong stick and held it out to JJ. JJ grabbed the stick with his paws and held on tight. Mole and Squirrel held the other end and pulled, and pulled, and pulled. At last there was a loud squelch and an even louder plop, and JJ was free. "Poor JJ," said Mole. "What happened?" "I I just came to get a drink, JJ shivered. I didn't know the mud would be so squelchy. The sun was sinking lower and lower in the sky. It was starting to get dark. I don't want to look for adventures any more, said JJ. I want to go home. I don't think there are any adventures out here, said Mole. Which way is home? Asked JJ. Over the bridge, past a field of corn and through a field of cows, said Squirrel. Or was it over the bridge, past a field of cows and then through a field of turnips? Said Mole slowly. You mean you don't know? Said JJ. You mean we're lost? Mole shivered. I don't like being lost, she said. Especially not in the dark, said Squirrel. I want to go home, wailed JJ. It was getting darker and darker. Suddenly they heard a strange rustling noise. What's that? Whispered Squirrel. It's a wolf, cried Mole. There was more rustling, followed by a swooshing noise. Help! Squealed JJ. There was another swoosh, and Owl swooped down from the sky. Oh, Owl, said JJ. We thought you were a wolf. We're lost. Squirrel doesn't know the way home, said Mole. Nor does Mole, said Squirrel. Oh dear, chuckled Owl. It's lucky I flew by. 3 very tired and bedraggled animals followed Owl as he led the way. Soon they were nearly home. Look, there's Badger, said Mole. Badger was snuffling about, looking for slugs. Where have you all been? He said. We were looking for an adventure, said JJ. But we couldn't find one, said Mole. We walked for miles, said JJ. Then I got stuck in the mud. Then we got lost, said Squirrel. And Mole thought there was a wolf. But Owl came and saved us, cried Mole happily. So you see, said Squirrel, there wasn't time for an adventure. No, said JJ, with a big yawn. But if we get up early tomorrow, then we might find a real adventure.